Macy's, a department store, more choices, more choices, more choices.
Okay, well, why isn't he using, like, Future Sight? Well, the thing is, Luffy's getting really mad here, and if you go back and you look at the fight between Luffy and Katakuri, the entire point of that fight was that if Katakuri was not calm and focused, the Future Sight falls apart. Observation in general really only works if you have like a certain calmness and zen about you, and you can't even say that's like skill, you know, like, oh, well, you know, maybe Luffy's more skilled with it. No, because like that's kind of the whole premise of Future Sight and how it works. You have to kind of maintain that state of mind. Katakuri had been training with observation for years, and even when he, like, the dude was pushing 50, and even then, if he lost his composure, he still could not use Future Sight. So, like, I'm looking at the scene right here after Luffy got bashed into the ground by the giant key. He gets back up, and he's like, ah! And he's, like, really mad at Scopper. So, like, I can understand why he wasn't using Future Sight, or, like, Scopper was pissing him off sufficiently enough where he couldn't use it, and the observation started to fall apart. But yeah, I mean, like, did he try? Sure, but he didn't use gear second, third, or fourth, so it's like, how much did he really try, you know? Also, Luffy was clearly not trying to, like, kill the old man. I mean, Luffy doesn't go, like, bloodthirsty really at all, so that wasn't something there. Luffy's not just like, okay, I'm gonna kill you, old man, and take that key. Gear fourth, Snake Man, let's go! You know, it's like, yeah, that's not how Luffy does things, but, he was getting pretty mad, and also the whole thing when Scopper brought up the Straw Hats. You know, he brings up, he's like, oh, hey, I know that Straw Hat, you know, what's up with that thing? And Luffy's like, yeah, Shanks lent me that. Oh, he just lent it to you. Man, he's kind of stingy. I thought that was kind of funny. I mean, honestly, if we're thinking about this, Scopper Gabon might be trying to, like, do some kind of Genkai-esque lesson for Luffy here. If you ever saw the beginning of the chapter Black Saga in Yu Yu Hakusho, when Yusuke and everybody gets captured and gets taken to the House of Four Dimensions, that's like a whole thing there where like the lesson is that strength does not solve everything, and that there are ways that you can be tricked and fooled and captured and one-upped. And Scopper might be showing that to Luffy right here, where it's like anybody mentions Shanks, all of a sudden Luffy just, like, he loses it. Like, we saw this with Loki. When Loki brought up Shanks, Luffy immediately went gear fourth and tried to punch him in the freaking nose. And Loki's like, whoa, hey, hold on, I can't even move here. It's like, don't say shit about Shanks. It's like, okay. So, like, that is definitely the nerve that can be touched on Luffy, that he just flies off the handle, right? And we saw that with Loki, and we're seeing that here with Scopper Gibbon. And I think maybe there's a lesson there that Luffy needs to learn, that, like, hey, you know, just because someone bad talks Shanks or bad talks your Straw Hat doesn't mean you should just fly off the handle and go insane with rage, because that's probably going to leave you open. And, you know, if Scopper was actively trying to hurt Luffy, it would have been a different kind of experience there. I'm not saying that, like, Scopper would have 100% been able to kill Luffy there, but, like, while Luffy's all upset and angry and yelling at him, like, shut up, you don't know anything about Shanks and this Straw Hat, which is ironic because Scopper totally does, but, like, even if he didn't, it's just like, oh man, he's really pissed right now, his observation's falling apart. Okay, I'm gonna actually take out my axe and try to split him in half here, and he might have actually got a solid hit off on Luffy. So another thing I wanted to bring up, and it's not a really big thing, but it is something I missed, is when Scopper Gibbon uses his technique, the Yaso Takeru. He uses, in this translation, it's called the Grim Throng, where he takes out his axes and uses one mighty swing to, I don't know if it's one swing or he's just doing like a volley, but it creates like the onslaught of like energy, you know, cutter blades, Getsuga Tensho things, right? When he does that and he slices the entire tower of Ao's castle apart, he actually also slices a cloud. Now, that's not that big of a deal. Like, Luffy and Zoro can do that shit, too. But, like, I missed it, and it's a really cool touch that he not only slices the tower apart, he also slices a cloud as well, okay? So just to go to show you the sheer power and, like, the shock waves of that onslaught, all right? And it probably wasn't even, like, him really trying it, like, this is, like, my strongest move or something. I mean, maybe it was, but I highly doubt it, right? So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say and add about the Scopper fight. Scopper Gibbon, Scooper Gibbon, Scooter. His name's Scooter now. Yeah, there it is. And then he just gives up, and he's just like, yeah, if Elbaf is still here, come and see me after, you know, after the battle, before you guys leave. All right, I'm gonna go off and bang my hot giant wife now. And then he leaves. You know, you rock on, Scopper, rock on. Just like, yep, I'm out of here, guys. I got a date with a biology teacher. It's like, okay, cool. All right, so that's that there. Now, moving on to the second half of the chapter involving the Gods Knights, because there's a lot of stuff I missed here. All right, so first off, let's talk about the Abyss a little bit. So the Abyss is finally named. We get a name for these magic circles that keep popping up all over the place. There's 3 kanji that make them up. The kanji for 5, which is go. The kanji bo, which means point, as in like a star point. And then the kanji sei, meaning star. So it's literally 5-pointed star. It's read as abyss, but it could also be easily read as pentagram, okay? So, which is understandable because it's the 5-pointed star in the center of the circle, right? So that's the name of it. We get a rule that is given that only those that are marked by the abyss or allowed to pass through the abyss can go through it and can actually teleport everywhere. So not everybody can just use the abyss. You have to have a mark. Now, what is this mark? Well, when Saint Summers was summoned, remember, he was like in his PJs, he was wearing his boxers and his tank top and whatever. We saw a tattoo on him that resembled like a compass point, like, it had like a circle with like 4 arrows jutting off of it. Could also look like the sun symbol that we've seen a few times. Also, somebody even compared it to when the Saint Brice was falling out of the sky. The flag on that ship also looks similar to that a little bit. But yeah, he had a tattoo on his elbow right here, kind of on his arm right here, right? Because we see him like sitting on his talking into the Den Mushi kind of thing, right? So could that be the mark? The other Gods Knights, we haven't seen that mark. The Gorosei, we haven't seen the mark. But keep in mind, they all wear impeccably nice like suits and things like that. The Gorosei are always dressed to the nines. Gunko doesn't wear any pants, but she still is wearing that long sleeve, super long sleeve jacket, so she could have one of the marks or tattoos there. Shamrock is obviously dressed to the nines as well. He's got like the military uniform and everything. Keringham also dressed, he has everything. So yeah, maybe that's one of the reasons. Maybe that's why he decided to draw Saint Summers like, in his PJs. It's like, oh, to show that he actually has a tattoo on him, and that's the tattoo. So I'm sure this isn't like a normal tattoo. I'm sure it is some kind of ritual that Im probably performs, but does not perform it on just like anybody. Maybe there's something more to it than just like Imu approaching you and be like, approach Saint Summers, I will add the mark upon you. And then it's just like, I have now been marked for the abyss. Maybe it is something like that. Maybe it's something you have to give. It could be something like that too, like, give me your soul and I will provide you with the mark to travel through the abyss. You have the ability to teleport, but you have to give your immortal soul away. I don't know, it might be something like that. It could also be the conduit which allows Imu to just, like, kill, anybody that maybe has that mark. Like, we saw Saint Saturn falling apart and being dissolved. Is that because he had the mark, or is that because of something additional? Because Imu seems to be giving out the powers to the Gorosei. That's how they got their abilities to transform into the yokai, seems to be the powers that Imu was giving them. Or, we could go separate here. We could say that the Gorosei just have mythical zones, and that's why they're able to assume those forms. But the immortality and the ability to travel through the abyss, that is something that is given to them by Imu. But then also Gunko is using that arrow ability, which is, it was stated to be the arrow devil fruit. However, it's also similar to an ability that Imu has. So I don't know how this works. Or it could be a thing that's like, Imu gives Gunko the mark to transport through the abyss, but also takes the ability too. Like, I'm taking a copy of your Devil Fruit ability. I will also be able to use the arrow ability, because it's mentioned that Devil Fruits change your lineage factor. So it's like, I give you the mark to teleport through the abyss, and I'm also, becoming partially, like, I'm getting your abilities too. Like, we're sharing a body, we're sharing a power here, and if I want to, I can just, like, eliminate you at the drop of a hat, right? Also, something about Gunko. It's not in this chapter, but it was mentioned a while ago. So Gunko does not have the Saint title as the others do. I actually don't think Shamrock has it either, but that might be something else. But at the very least, Gunko doesn't have it, and it was mentioned when Gunko was like shit stomping Loki, Like, how dare you? You were given a privilege that so few have. You are given the ability to ascend from the lower realm to the upper realm. We're presenting you the invitation to become a God's Knight, and you're turning it down. You are lower than scum. And then she proceeds to just beat the shit out of Loki. Well, what if, yeah, a lot of people were saying, like, what if that's how she became a God's Knight? She's not originally a Tenryubito, but she was given the title to become a God's Knight. That's something interesting, and the story there is probably very fascinating if that is the case. Not sure how that goes down. Could also be maybe a situation where I am, well, it's been basically confirmed that, you know, there's lots of, like, bastard children of the Tenryubito, you know, because they take a lot of wives and they get bored with them. We saw this with Charlos. So I'm sure not every single child of a Tenryubito becomes the next Tenryubito, right? Like, that's not how it works. So maybe Gunko falls into that category. Maybe she was, like, discarded, but then she, like, climbed back up or something. Not literally climbed back up the red line, but, like, something happened and they were like, okay, we'll make you a God's Knight. You know, and I don't know how that goes, but we'll find out more about that later. But yeah, just wanted to mention that. Something else about Gunko that we see in this chapter that I just completely glossed over, it's a gag and it's really funny, is that when Saint Summers arrives and, you know, he's, you know, basically naked, Gunko immediately looks away, like, and then she starts blushing, and we see her actually turn around and be like she's actually super embarrassed to look at, like, Saint Summers, like, being kind of naked. Not even fully naked, just, like, in his boxers and tank top. He's like, oh, okay, that's good to see that. And she turns around, and the entire meeting, until he gets dressed, she is literally facing the opposite direction. She walks away a little bit. She walks away from the whole area and just kind of stares off into the distance and is just, like, just sitting there and just, like, waiting until he gets dressed. So, I guess she's embarrassed by nudity. If only there's anybody around right now that doesn't wear pants also. Wait a minute, Frankie! So, yeah, I saw that. It's like people are like, oh, she's embarrassed by nudity! Frankie! Frankie's gonna fight Gunko! It's like, okay, yeah, let's go with that. Let's do it. You know, like, they all show up to kidnap the children. And then Frankie and Chopper and Robin and Saul and Ripley are there, and they all go to stop them. And then Frankie's like, let's do this. Let's save the children. And then Gunko jumps down, and she's about to summon an arrow to stab Frankie. And then she sees Frankie's not wearing any pants, and is immediately like, would you please put some pants on before I fight you? And just like, what are you? You're not wearing any pants either, lady. Come on, let's go. This is a fight. Strong right. You know, just like, you know, so that could be fun. That'll be fun. Let's explore that. Let's go down that route where Gunko is incredibly embarrassed by nudity. That's the thing, like, and I mentioned this in the review, like, Oda makes these two, Summers and Killingham, makes them, like, goofy and silly, but, like, I'm sure they are dead serious and very powerful once they get into battle. But it's like the idea that they're still human beings. You don't get that vibe with the Gorosei. The Gorosei are not really played for laughs too much because they are kind of like super old and like semi-immortal as long as Emu allows it. But the God's Knights, you don't get that impression. I don't think Saint Summers is like 500 years old or something like that. I think he's about like in his 60s or 70s. He's from the family of Shepherd. He's related to Jew Peter in some way. We just don't know how. But at any rate, yeah, they are humans, okay? Gunko and Killingham and Summers and Shamrock, they are all human beings that might have been given some abilities by Emu, but they are not like immortals like the Gorosei are. Like we know Saturn at least has been around for 200 years before he died, right? They're not like that. They're still humans, and they're still vulnerable to having embarrassing moments of being summoned at a moment's notice to halfway around the world and being like, oh man, I didn't even have a chance to like, brush my teeth. What the hell's going on here? Why are you doing this, right? So like that's funny. Okay. So, talking about Killingham a little bit here. The bubble and the little apparatus thing, I saw some people saying that he wasn't a Kirin, it was more of like a seahorse. He's definitely a Kirin. Like, the name itself is indicative of that. But I am curious because, like, a lot of the Tenryubito, I don't think wear the bubbles while they're at Marijois. Like, if just hanging out, chilling out in their houses or their giant opulent mansions, I don't think they'd be wearing the bubble helmets. And we see that with Summers. Summers is just kind of chilling out in his house, you know, and you know, taking the phone call before he gets summoned. He's not wearing the bubble helmet or anything like that. So I think the helmet for Kirinham is not the same thing as the Tenryubito. It's maybe a function of his powers somehow. Also, Kirins are able to fly. All right, so maybe he can fly as well. I know flying in One Piece isn't that big of a deal anymore, but he could probably do that. You know, he has the ribbon, he has like the mane of the Kirin, and a lot of times that's like a wreath in fire, so he could probably summon some kind of magical flames. But yeah, that's really all I wanted to say about him. Nothing really else. I'm gonna, you know, I'll eventually, since I'm doing videos on all the Devil Fruits, I'll eventually do an entire video on the Kirin Zone when we maybe see a little bit more of what he's capable of. And also, we haven't seen his, you know, full form yet, or his normal form. He's like human form yet as well, because he's in his hybrid when he arrives. So a little bit of mystery on what we're going to see there, okay? So another big thing that I missed, a lot of people brought this up. This is probably the biggest one that I missed. And I did actually have something written down that I wanted to say about this in the review. I just forgot. Visiting King Harald's grave. They bring that up. It just, because it seems like Summers and Kirinham are like, why are you here on a, like why are you in Elbaf? It's a non-affiliated nation. It's not part of the world government. Like, why are you here right now? Is it to visit King Harald's tomb or something? So that pretty much right there indicates King Harald was in league with the world government. King Harald might have even been a God's Knight or some shit, because it doesn't seem like the God's Knights really care about a lot of other people. They might not even care really about all of themselves, but they seem to have like some friendly, you know, like, oh, we're comrades fighting together in the same unit kind of deal. So yeah, what if King Harald, maybe in the same way Gunko was maybe promoted from the lower realm, maybe King Harald was also offered it. Maybe that's why they thought they could offer Loki that. Like, we offered your father the ability to become, you know, a celestial dragon or become a God's Knight, and he accepted it. So why don't you accept it too, Loki? You're his son, right? Maybe that's like, that's their first attempt to like, well, it worked on Harald, maybe it'll work on Loki, kind of thing, right? So yeah, it at very least it seems, since Summers would say that, like, you know, why are you doing in a non-member nation like Elbaf? Are you visiting King Harald's tomb? That implies they worked together, at least. That implies they were friends. That implies that King Harald, Shamrock, and Summers, and maybe some of the other God's Knights knew one another on a very close personal level to visit someone's grave. So, yeah, King Harald, he was a traitor. I'm pretty sure at this point. He was a phony! He was a big, fat phony! He was trying to weaken Elbaf from the inside so the world government could take it over. A big fat phony, I say! I don't know if that was actually the case, but maybe. Oh my god, wait. What? Could it have been that? I don't know. Gunko was surprised that there was a school on Elbaf. They were surprised by that revelation, okay? But like, and that was like over 20 years ago that school was established. But like, oh, do you think that would be, oh dude, that would be sinister. If King Harald was like, I will rip off the horns on my head that represent the ancient giants of war, and we are all going to be about peace and prosperity and opening up the country to the entire world. And everyone was like, yeah, King Harald, a new era of peace. And then in reality, he's like, yes, I will weaken the giants and make them less warfaring so the world government can take over. I don't know, but like, if that's the case, that's pretty damn sinister. That would be a plot twist. That would be an M. Night Shyamalan plot twist, Oda. All right. But I can't think of any other reason they would suggest that. So they were definitely friends. They were getting along. And the fact that the summoning circle was already in the king's castle, in the throne room, kind of displays that. You need to have the pentagram, the abyss, drawn somewhere or established somewhere in order to go there first. I'm probably going to do a whole video talking about the logistics of how this works, but it's already there, and now since they teleported there, now Gunko and Shamrock can use that ability to teleport whenever, opening other summoning channels. Is that how it works? Yeah. But then we also have at the very end Shamrock returning to Marijois, and Summers mentions, well, it's because things are kind of getting crazy at Marijois right now. Remember, if that hooded figure that went to go see the Gorosei during Reverie, if that was Shamrock and not Shanks, one of the Gorosei mentioned, like, oh, you've come a long way, you've traveled. So that seems to imply I don't think Shamrock maybe spends a lot of time at Marijois. I used to assume that all of the Gorosei, all of the God's Knights stayed at Marijois at all times. Doesn't really seem to be the case because, like, we don't see them. Like, when Kuma attacked, it was Akainu. When the Revolutionaries attacked, it was Fujitora and Aramaki that held them back. You know, you don't see the God's Knights, like, anywhere. So maybe they are spending a lot of time traveling around the world. And since they can teleport, they can go back to Marijois at the drop of a hat. So it's not really, there's no reason to stay there all the time, right? But, yeah, I'm thinking Shamrock, you know, was away from Marijois for a long time. And then he decided to go back to talk about a certain pirate, and he did. And then he left again immediately after, and now he's in Elbaf, and now Summers is like, hey, you should really go back to Marijois. You've been summoned back because, like, some really crazy shit's been going down since the Reverie, since you've last been there. And Shamrock's like, okay, you know, and Keringham mentions it's an order from above. So it either is his dad, Garling, or another member of the Gorosei, or it's Emu themselves ordering him back. I can't really imagine anybody else that'd be able to order Shamrock, right? So, and he decides to go right away. So, like, yeah. Is he going to pop back in again? I mean, we have teleportation now in One Piece, so he could be popping in and out whenever. It's not really that big of a deal. Do you think any of the allies are going to be able to utilize the Abyss at any point? Like, you think you're going to figure out a way to, like, use the teleportation circle? Do you think Shanks could figure out a way to use the teleportation circle? Like, stuff like that. I don't know. Let me know down below on how that whole method is going to work. Because now we have a way to get, like, people over vast distances. It's just certain criteria need to be met. How does that work? Okay. This is so dumb, but this is a total D&D move. Like, if this premise was established in D&D, like if we're playing D&D and it's like, oh yeah, there's a magic circle that allows you to teleport to locations, but only those that have a special tattoo mark on their arms or somewhere on their bodies are able to use the teleportation circle. Okay, what if I kill Summers and then rip his arm off and I use that tattoo to unlock the Abyss? Can I transport it that way? I'd have the tattoo. I have his arm right here. I'm just going to use it like a key. Would that work? Let me roll this. Yeah, sure, it works. You press his dismembered arm into the Abyss and it opens up and you can teleport wherever you need to go. Like, would it though? Would it? Like, I don't know. Like, if it is just a tattoo, is that all it needs? All right. Well, anyway, that's that. Let me know down below how you feel about that. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Teching signing out. Later, everybody.
ceiling, ano na lang, kani, pertahan, tapos roof na, tapos kasad na na yung tumapos na dun na. Ano? Ano yan? Mamaya na naman si ito naman na